Muffins arrived back at Castilla to report to the high leaders their findings of what they had seen in Alpenstadt. As they traveled through, the hope they once had all these years had turned into fear, as the realization of not knowing how victory could be achieved anymore sunk deep into their minds. As they pulled into the center of the town, they stopped their tanks and began to unload and resupply their tanks to be ready for the next mission to be had. The Russian father begins to feel something isn't quite right as he stops to unload and looks around at the crowd of people surrounding him, wondering where his daughter might be. Some of the town people helped with the tanks as the Muffins began to ascend to meet with the high leaders to discuss an emergency plan of action. The leaders are seen quietly discussing something as the Muffins finally reach them. As they see the Muffins approach them, they stop and stand in silence. The German commander steps forward while telling them of their findings in the western lands. One of the leaders speaks up while looking around, that their other two spy divisions never made it back, and that it's only a matter of time before they're found and everything is brought to an end. They've lost more of their bases, and the resources to keep fighting this war without the help of garages is no longer possible. Some divisions have even offered to surrender to the plague in hopes they'll allow them to survive. Hopelessness is seen in their eyes as two of the leaders step forward and say, "We might also have a chance to survive if we join them." The American commander shakes his head and looks around in disbelief while getting upset. "And you think that is freedom? I would rather die knowing that I had fought for what is right than live out the rest of my days in evil. If you decide you want to join them, then go ahead and turn your backs on everything we've fought for and all those we've lost through these years." The American commander looks at the others and storms away as a tear rolls down the face of the German commander. Silence comes between them as the German commander turns around to walk over to look out over their lands. The KV commander walks to join him and puts his hand on his shoulder. The German commander speaks up. "I thought after the fall that even though the world was in pieces, we had finally escaped the arm of evil that had taken our country, but all I see is it has come back to claim us." "Nothing has come back to claim us yet," the commander of the KV replies, as the Russian father starts to wonder again where his daughter might be. "Where is my daughter?" the Russian father is heard asking the leaders, as they all look to face each other once more. One of the leaders looks down while the look of trying to say what might be feared is about to be spoken. "We learned after the disappearance of the spy divisions that your daughter was one of the crew members that decided to go with them." The Russian father raises his old war-beaten hands slowly to cover his mouth while tears start to fill his eyes. "I promised I would protect her," he is heard whispering through his soul-broken voice, as one of the high leaders tries to speak, but the Russian father yells back to interrupt. "I've lost everything. Don't you try to tell me there was nothing I could have done. Don't tell me this wasn't my fault." Silence falls between them as the rage is begun to see filling his eyes in replacement of the tears that were once there. The Russian father angrily says while walking down to his tank, "I'm going to put an end to this once and for all, and I won't be coming back until I have the head of the plague leader behind all of this." The German commander rushes over to try and stop him. "If you go, you won't be coming back at all. That's suicide," he says as he tries to convince him, but the Russian father yells back, "And what do I have left? What is a man that has been stripped of everything? I have nothing else to live for." Everyone continues to look toward the Russian father, as the wind is the only thing heard blowing past them, while the sound of footsteps are heard walking up from behind him. "What about me?" the Russian father's son is heard speaking up. The Russian father turns around and remembers the one thing he still had left that mattered so much to him as he began to cry. "Wait, the German commander says as an idea was given to him through the conversation just had. What if we attacked one of the garages? A commander of the graveyard division replies, We've already tried that in years past and it's never worked. No, what I mean is what if we made it look like it was our last stand? What if we pretended to attack one of the garages by making it look like we were taking everything we had left, but then ended up really attacking another? The plague would have reinforcements pulled from the other garages, making them more vulnerable, the German commanders heard finishing saying, while the realization of what was being said might actually work. And how would we pretend to do that? The American commander says while overhearing and rejoining the group. Tanks began to swarm towards the lands of one of the mainland plague garages they knew was central to the plague's operations, and the Muffins had failed to take over many times before. Light tank spots the overwhelming swarm of Muffin tanks and quickly drives off to report to their leaders. The Muffins see the light tank retreating as the leaders tell all the Muffins not to fire at it. As the light tank arrives at the garage, he tells of a group of tanks from the Muffins so large that it must be the last of them trying to make a stand against them in a final effort to take back one of the garages. The leader runs over and grabs his binoculars and looks out across the lands to see the wave described start to stop and line up for preparations in the distance. The leader frantically orders the others, Call the others from the nearby garages. We're going to need support for this attack. The leaders of the Muffins look on towards the garage to notice preparations being made for an attack that wasn't going to happen. The plague leaders look back while noticing their lineup as other leaders walk up to join them. So the day has finally come that the Muffins will be no more. We must report to our headmaster. He will want to witness this, the main base leaders heard saying, as the day begins to slowly fade away and the blindness of the dark covers the land while the plague anxiously awaits for their arrival. As the morning sun began to crest the surrounding mountains and light began to fill the land once more, the plague tried to eagerly get eyes on the wave of muffin tanks once more. The sight of dark tank silhouettes far in the distance of where the muffins were began to be seen. The plague leaders began to impatiently order everything they had prepared with their reinforcements to start and swarm towards the muffins' last stand, to quickly take them out, possibly before being ready for their attack. As the wave of plague tanks began to approach the muffins' tanks, the sunlight began to appear more over the mountains, as the sight of what they thought was scattered muffin tanks actually began to look like already pre-destroyed vehicles that lay waste around their area. The plague leaders began to become stumped with confusion as the order for the advance is instructed to come to a halt. The actual wave of the muffins had relocated during the night and was now rushing toward one of the weaker garages to attack it. The order of the muffin leaders had given to rush in while firing at the remaining plague tanks around the garage completely caught off guard and scrambling around to try and get their tanks in a ready position. The alarm is sounded as plague tanks began firing back while the muffins closed in. plague tanks at the garage were not enough to support the massive wave of muffin tanks. The victory of taking back one of the garages had finally happened, and many of the plague tanks that didn't have time to prepare had fallen into their hands. Everyone from the muffins rejoice as they claim and gather what they can and start up the garages to build up and take back the rest from the plague from once was theirs.